Hello, today I'm going to be sharing about 3 leaders of excellence that I interviewed for my essay. I chose 3 leaders from my immediate community, leaders that I look up to and I consider to be great leaders. The reason I chose each of my leaders is because they come from such different backgrounds and have very different leadership styles, but I think there's a lot to be learned from each of them. The first leader I chose is a 30-year-old female leader at a tech company. She leads 15 people and many of them are male. The second leader is a 45-year-old male leader at a university. He manages 10 employees and he was a pastor for 15 years before. He is my current boss. And the third leader that I'm interviewing is a 62-year-old president of a manufacturing company who manages 50 people. Many of them are from a different culture and language than him. First question that I asked them was, how do you promote teamwork and collaboration in the office? The first leader told me that she asks for feedback often from them, and she encourages them to also ask for feedback as well. She sets consistent team agreements so they always know what to expect. Lastly, she acknowledges good teamwork. The second leader reminded me how important it was to be humble and to be a servant as a leader. He works alongside his employees, and he's very careful about the language that he uses. He works with us instead of us working for him. He makes it a point to serve his employees and he always remembers that the employees are more important than the numbers at the end of the day. The third leader reminded me how important it is to celebrate each other and encourage. He encourages his employees to also celebrate one another's achievements. He also makes sure that everyone is moving towards the same vision and goal. Second question I asked to my leaders was, how do you implement mentorship and coaching into your leadership? How do you maintain authority while still having a personal relationship with your employees? The reason why I chose this question is because I was very interested in how they balanced being a leader and not being too close of friends with their employees to where they lose all of their leadership. The first leader says that she sets goals and provides feedback for them. She also says that she listens and respects all of her employees. She keeps it consistent across the board so that they always know what to expect with her, and thus they can respect her. The second leader asks his employees what they need from him. So he holds one-on-one meetings with us, and he always asks us, what are your goals in life? And how can I help you develop soft skills to reach those goals? He also says that he holds his employees loosely because he knows that this is not our final job and that we are going to be using this job as a stepping stone. He also remembers to serve and lead his employees first and foremost. Leader 3 assigns different employees to help each other, which helps build relationships among the employees and also builds collaboration. So he will find somebody who is great at a specific thing to teach somebody else who might be new at that. He also reminded me how important it is not to play favorites. The third and final question that I asked to my leaders is, what is your approach to managing social issues surrounding diversity and identity? This is something I might be interested in doing my thesis on, so that's why I was really interested in hearing about great leaders and hearing from great leaders about this. Leader 1 told me that she makes sure everyone has a voice, feels heard, and respected. She also addresses social issues right away as soon as they pop up. She also follows an employee handbook from HR just to make sure that everything is consistent. There is no gray area in that. Leader 2 finds it very important to hire people from an underserved population, because he wants to represent the body of Christ at our university. He says that he wrestles with it daily because it's tough when the only people applying for the position are white, but he wants to represent the body of Christ. Leader 3 has a different approach. He says that personal life should really not affect who is hired. So he does not really look at their background. He also said that companies have the right to hire based on religious beliefs. So if we work at a Christian university, we have the right to hire only Christian people. He also wants it to be focused on the job instead of focused on diversity. Each of these leaders was so great and taught me so much, so this is what I learned from each specific leader. Leader 1 taught me to have a consistent feedback model. Consistency is very important so that your employees know what to expect and they can respect you in that. In that, it's also very important to have clear expectations and leave no gray area in your leadership. Now, this leader is a female leader leading mostly males, so I was interested in how that might affect it. I think that maybe females are generally seen as more relational and more emotional, so she had to combat that. Leader 2. I learned from leader 2 that it's important to be humble and be a servant leader. He's relationship focused, he inspires and he motivates us. It might be because he used to be a pastor, but he's really good with his words. He strives towards diversity and equity. He asks his employees about their future goals to see how he can help develop their soft skills instead of working just towards numbers or the goal of the company. He really focuses on relationships. Leader 3 reminded me how important it was to celebrate each other and encourage others to celebrate one another as well. He also delegates tasks and trusts employees. He's a true theory Y leader because he assumes the best in his employees and that they have internal motivation. If my future thesis is about diversity and cultural differences in the office, then I have learned a lot from each of these leaders. I would love to keep researching cultural diversity in the workplace. And each of these leaders taught me a little bit. The first leader taught me how to address issues right away and have a consistent employee handbook, consistent feedback model. That seems like a really good way to start. The second leader reminded me that it's a constant battle, but to constantly be seeking to create an environment that looks like the body of Christ. The third leader reminded me that it's also important to focus on work without too much focus on their personal lives. Revelation 7:9 says, "After this I looked, and behold, with a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands." So this is what heaven's going to look like. So that's why my leader number 2 strives to make our university look like the body of Christ. In conclusion, each of the leaders I interviewed finds it very important to respect and listen to each employee and provide individual feedback. I also learned from each of them how important it is to have an individual relationship with each employee. After all the research and discussion, the most important thing to me is to try to look at Jesus and see how he was a leader. He humbled himself and he taught us that the most important thing is to love each other. Proverbs 11:2 says, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom." If we want to be a great leader, we have to be humble so that we can be wise. Matthew 7:24 says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock." I would love to keep listening to exactly what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount and just try to follow what he was like as a leader. From each of my leaders, I learned that it is so important to be a servant, humble leader, and to build relationships. Thank you.